First book, Entering the Forest, appeared in 2005. His second, Chickadees, in 2010. His third, Killers, was published in 2014 by Yvonne Daley's Verdant Books Press. He thinks there will likely be a new book in 2017, and so we may be hearing a few previews from that book tonight. So let's welcome George Mathon.
Is there any Scotch tape? Can you hear me? Thank you, B. Book and Leaf. This is quite a nice thing you guys do. Happy to be here. I'm going to read poems from Chickadees, Killers, and also the new poems. Tape, thank you. Buick's puppies. You'll need to know that. First poem I'll read is from the Chickadees book. It's called Blinking Yellow. I was sitting at a corner, going to make a left turn, and right in front of me, I was in a red light. A car came across, another one coming this way, never stopped. T-boned the guy, went shh. And he stopped like 6 inches in front of my car. And the guy's head was there bobbling like this as I was watching. Anyway, it prompted this poem. It's called Blinking Yellow. I was cruising down Main Street. Doubt hung like dice from the rear view mirror. Every intersection begged a question. I passed by wonder and curiosity, slowed as my longings festered, lit up like neon signs, too bright to ignore. And what happened after maybe and what if? Strung out on the horizon, well, it felt more essential than no or yes. So what if I decided to cross the border, drift with saffron landscapes, the radio at full volume playing balalaika and calypso, songs I've never heard before? So what if I decided I liked the way the wind pulled unpredictably at my baseball hat when the top was down? Or if I turned left toward serendipity instead of onto righteousness, or made a U-turn off the straight and narrow toward revolutionary? What if I floored the gas pedal until acceleration peeled flesh back from my jowls toward some primal wisdom, or jammed my heel on the brake so hard I scraped gravity off the asphalt? And what if, when I crossed the intersection, I wanted to make up my own mind, weigh the arguments for and against, didn't trust the clear instruction of stop or go, because I'd seen so many blank faces at red and green lights, so many drivers waiting without thinking, hands on their horns, or crossing without looking because they believed they had the right of way, heading straight into an accident. So many more wrecks than at Blinking Yellow. This is a poem from the newer book, Killers. There's a concept I like to think about. Remainders is what it's the things that are left over in life, things that make life interesting, really. It's all this stuff. I mean, just imagine if everyone had the same color eyes, their noses were the same. You know, everyone had the same religion. Oh, how boring would that be, right? Remainders. When he asked her to marry him, DiMaggio must have foreseen the divorce, because it wasn't the perfect, but the vulnerable and broken pieces of her heart that he loved. And it was those slips of straw hanging from the straw man's hat that made it smarter than a scarecrow. As it was Tom Sawyer's push against the will of those boys, just enough extra to convince them it was a privilege to whitewash that fence. As it was radium's remainder, its half-life of radiation that left those baffling images on the photographic plates and in Marie Curie's body. If yin pulls us one way, yang pushes against us, not as Chinese philosophy says, but with too little or too much force, rarely equally. If Nobel gives a peace prize, does that restore the balance? It's unexplainable as weather. It's gravity's stickiness that crash lands a spacecraft. It's why a knuckleball is rarely where the batter swings. It's why DiMaggio's love was hopeless, could never make Marilyn whole. And it's why Van Gogh painted all those stars to light his way out of the asylum, even as the brilliance overflowed his mind, trying to explain it. Another poem from the Killer's book. This is about my grandmother. There's an ongoing conflict between my mom's siblings and my siblings and all my cousins, the two different age groups, about my grandmother, whether she fell off the bridge or jumped. The poem is called The Bridge You Had to Cross. Morning and night on bare knees, your prayers must have been a feeble light into the tunnel of your depression. When you walked home from Mass holding your shawl like a life vest against that frigid April morning, were they too dim to light the bridge you had to cross? Everything you knew said, stay back, but you went headlong to the railing. Did you misstep? Because it was a long step off that bridge into the river. No witnesses came forward, no criminals confessed. Your guardian angel must have wept in disbelief on the bank. As I too had questions, but what would a 12-year-old boy ask an old woman wavering on a bridge? Grandma, were you kneeling, still praying at the railing? Did you know how to swim, or did you think it useless to fight the river's icy turbulence? Years later, Aunt Elle confided that you'd pointed to the river months before, saying, I'm going to go there, as if you already had a ticket. But certain sins must be forgotten, can never be forgiven. And that river was made for forgetting, passing guilt like a pitiable mineral into an ocean without judgment, as if belief could raise up a body. The way a body displaces water is buoyed up by that force against gravity, even against one's will. Face down in an eddy, your bones still knocking against the stones when they found you. What were you looking for in the river's muddy bottom? Another death poem. You know, poets are, that's when they're happiest. Even Billy Collins, we saw last Saturday, who is well known for his humor, in fact won a humor award, I think, said that most poems are about death. This poem is actually based on a poem by a Florida poet called Donald Justice, and well, I'll just leave it at that. Lettered olive shells, that's a kind of, well, it's a seashell, obviously. And this is a Florida poem. I think I will die in Miami, famously on a day when pelicans crash into a gilded sunrise at South Beach, or in Key West on Duval Street as Harley Davidsons ride off into a glazed sunset muffling the gunshots. But I would prefer to die on the beach on Sanibel Island, a rich man, picking lettered olive shells, turbans, shark eyes, murex, and cone shells from the surf. It will be on a day when I am remembered by the men I know, and their women will shiver as they speak of me. Black vultures will soar above them and throw cold shadows across their faces. They will feel poorer by the loss. I think it will be on a Thursday, like today, because when I heard the birds repeat my name without mercy or praise in slow circling obituaries, it was as if I'd already fallen, as if nothing had ever been so lost. George Mathon is dead. My friends will complain about the poverty of death in Florida. They will hold on to each other, frightened by a knife-edged conch shell cutting up the shoreline on Sanibel. It's ghostly as a laughing gull, bodiless, the handle thick as a python, dangerous as a switchblade in the fist of an assassin. Is this the one? Rain will fall on the ocean and the conch shell tumble in the surf. One of the men will try to retrieve it out of respect, but it will be too far out. And the men will shake their fists one more time, and it will be impossible to tell if the women are crying as rain drips down their faces. A little heavy. Usually I try to be more, a little more funny, but I don't know, I chose these poems. Another Florida poem. This is lighter, but still, it's a bit ethereal. If anyone here has ever driven the overseas highway along the Keys, that 130-mile drive, on a perfect day, sun just brilliant in the sky so blue, and the ocean also just blue, blue, blue. The poem is called Blue. Today, whitecaps, sun-torched and singed with gold, tiptoe the seas on accountable blue. White cumulus, immaculate and drifting above the Keys, so pure a white buttermilk. Even though you don't believe it, the way they disappear into the distant blue, they could be uncountable souls crossing to heaven. You drive the overseas highway for 3 hours besides mangrove trees, so determined they march in lockstep all the way to Key West. The limestone beaches fill up with radiance. Humbled, you feel so out of place in the glittering stillness, in the presence of great blue herons and great white egrets and everything else that comes out from hiding. Slow down, you think, peering through your own gilded reflection, longingly toward the altering water, wanting your life to blaze like that sun-riddled blue and mean something just for a moment before you drive on. So I'm going to switch to religion. This is a lot lighter topic. The new book has a section I'm going to call agnostic, and it is includes a whole series of haiku. So I'm going to read a bunch of those right now, several of those. They're broken into categories, and I'll read the categories, and all the haikus relate essentially to that category. And I've chosen a selection. This is not all of them in the book. They'll appear in the book. I had to cut back considerably because I have 8 pages of these haikus, and I've cut it down to about 2.5 or 3 here. Agnostic haiku. This is the category of rational God. Throwing rocks at the mountain, looking for God. So the concept of a haiku, if you don't know it, is usually it's 2 ideas, 2 lines. In the classic sense, it's 3 lines, the way originally everyone thought of writing them. But it's basically two ideas juxtaposed that when you look at them, you have to bring your brain, shift it in gear to figure out how they're connected. Throwing rocks at the mountain, looking for God. So you see how they're connected. Okay. A cold winter night, that big wooden cross will make a warm fire. That one always gets people smiling. I make excuses for God's cruelty, but wolves do the killing. Einstein believed God would not play dice with the universe. Perhaps he was right. Maybe the dice were loaded. I've seen osprey build nests so large they collapse the trees that hold them. This is a category called a meaningful life. The altar boy is not molested, but he's given a prayer book. No smiles? Alan often gets laughs. Moths love the flames. They can't stop themselves. If there's a heaven, my recliner will be there. Crows remember every indiscretion. Forgive no one. Dazed among flowering cholla, I've made my peace with desert thorns. A greedy camel can't squeeze through the eye of a needle. Joyful, running through fields, I trample the flowers bees pollinate. No watch, no rings, no jangly things around my neck. Pawn them all at Rick's. A million people or a million trees. You choose. The category is Feel the Joy. Feels like a game show almost, doesn't it? What makes a tiger alluring makes her dangerous. I've never been slapped for telling a woman she's beautiful. When I unhook my lover's bra, peaches and tomatoes. How else to explain the 10-foot-long prehensile penis of blue whales? Even disagreeable mules have tails long enough to swat flies from their withers. Fresh-picked sweet corn, lobster beginning to boil. I'll say grace tonight. Even as the shark combs and parts my hairy head with rows of sharp teeth, I can't help but admire its well-evolved dentition. The pepperoni pizza is limp and cold. Still better than broccoli. I don't know, why does that get such a laugh all the time? If God ordered a slice of pie in my diner, I'd call him Sweetie. Weeping for my lover's unfaithfulness, I hear loons calling. Touch your lover. Only if she is your lover will you feel it too. I'll finish this little section. Death. You had to get some death in there. It's about religion anyway. If you can't see vultures circling above, you're dead. A wolf's bony carcass, all that remains of its terrifying howl. Kingfishers lift bits of silver immortality from the stream. So many great deals at the nursing home thrift shop. Have to think of that one. And this is the last one, just in this section. The world gives everything, charges by taking it back. What a bargain. So I have to thank, for that last one, I have to thank a poet called Jack Gilbert. I stole a lot of that from him. So I have one more poem in the agnostic realm. This poem is called Consolation. I've tapped my father's headstone, waited for his reply. I've stamped the dust of 1,000 vanished mountains from my boots. I've seen old maple trees pour their lives into buckets of exhausted winter. Watched the moon and stars soft shoo across the sky to songs I can't hear. So much for an afterlife. But the music must be beautiful, something smooth and jazzy. I can tell by the stars' footwork and from the way they fall down every night. Get up and do it again. I don't need toe taps, just scatter some sand across the floor. An easy glide, a rhythm slow enough even I can keep in step. Not for eternity, just to dance the night away. So we'll lighten it up. And the one poem I want here is not here. It goes with the handout here. How did I do it? Well, I'll just have to skip it for I must. So this poem requires audience participation, and so that's what these words are. Donuts, Buicks, puppies. Everyone see them, I hope. So I'm going to stop at 3 points in the poem, and you have to shout out which of these words you think fits there. Okay? A lot of pressure on you guys. I find this poem works better at drunken parties, because then people have no inhibitions. They just say anything. But in a group like this, people are often a little uptight. Anyway, it's just a short poem. Donuts, Buicks, puppies. Donuts, Buicks, puppies. Love is like a donut. A donut. Oh, I'm not at a stopping point.
Some of us are poets. It's way too hard.
I've never had people shout it out while I'm reading, but that's okay.
Why don't you put your finger up when we have to come up?
Okay, I'll do that, okay. Love is like a donut. A couple devours the irresistible fried dough on the outside, circling its sweetness without end or beginning. But there's an enormous hole in the middle. Soon they chew through to that infinite center. One of them wants more, but the other is no longer hungry. Now they see how big the emptiness is inside. They rush. No, they run outside to their Buicks. Escape into the night. Forlorn and suffering through days of dreadful loneliness, they buy
Donuts.
puppies to ease their misery. One day, after their hearts have forgotten how desolate the hole in the middle was, they see another box of
Buicks.
donuts on the shelf. They buy it without even checking the sell-by date.
How'd we do?
Not as good as my drunken parties.
I think you did very well.
This is a poem that's a he-she poem. It's a love poem. And there's a he part and then a she part. And I'm just going to go ahead and read here. He. It's a love poem. You ask me, how many women have you known? Do you really want to know? Because when I tell you, another woman looks back at me. You've been with one man your whole life. His art fills your house. I have 62 pictures in my wallet. I can't remember all the names, but I recall 1,000 moments and all the details. Have you ever had to look for love? She. Lying in bed, burning, happy, I watched the sunrise. Remember how I held his hand to my breast. I think about 63. I can't imagine all those heartbreaks. Birds outside sing, carry twigs, don't count lovers. I smell coffee. That night at a wine tasting, my friends ask, is he the sommelier or a collector? I tell them, I believe him when he says, I've been looking for you all my life. Would you believe? Show of hands, who would believe? She was still eating the donut, yes. Yeah. Another love poem. Under the horse